So you are all here for the IMBCI webinar for step 3.
Yes. So welcome, everyone. This is Deborah talking, Deborah Pascali-Bonaro, and I am really honored to do the intros and then turn it over to Ray Davies and Barbara Hotelling. And both of them have just not only been dear friends, amazing colleagues, but incredible supporters of both the Mother-Friendly Childbirth Initiative and our international MotherBaby Childbirth Initiative for years, and a key part of its development. So Ray has been a birth and breastfeeding advocate since her first birth that was featured in Childbirth for the Joy of It. And for those that haven't seen that, Ray, you're going to have to share it with all of us one day soon. I haven't seen it in a long time.
Yeah, well, what's fun about that title is it's like it was a pre-orgasmic birth, right?
Yes.
Childbirth for the Joy of It. People were saying, what? And then orgasmic birth was the next big one to come out.
Yeah, and it's wonderful. We need to see more about the joy of it, right? And that's what we're talking about. She's also a childbirth educator, a doula, and the recipient of the Advanced Doula designation by DONA International, as well as a doula trainer. And Ray, that's what she sent me, but I want you all to know she is our administrative director. She is key part of keeping the IMBCI communicating and for helping us all to keep connected and bringing the IMBCI out into the world. So Ray, it's wonderful to have you presenting today. And with Ray is Barbara Hotelling, and Barbara is another treasure that we've been working with for years. And after learning about birth doulas, Lamaze childbirth educator, and the hug, Barbara used this knowledge plus that gained from becoming a women's health nurse practitioner and IBCLC to train nursing students at Duke University in Durham, North Carolina. She's also passed all this wisdom along to her 5 children, who are passing it along to her 7 grandchildren. And Barbara is also, and she'll be telling you about it, co-author of the book, How to Become Mother Friendly. So Ray and Barbara, you two treasures, and I love that you put these old pictures up because it's been a lot of years of sharing and working and enjoying. I pass this off to you and everyone that's with us today. You're in for a real treat.
Thank you, Deborah. I couldn't resist looking at these photos of us, because Barbara and I have worked together for a long time. And on the left, you see that Kim's, which is the mother to the IMBCO, is received the Lamaze International Birth Advocate Award in September 2002. And the picture on your right is Barbara and I and several other Kim's members doing a rep. And the person who wrote the rep is the one in the far right-hand corner, and she was a member of Kim's and an OB. So we had lots and lots of fun. Barbara is the past president of Kim's, and I'm actually the past executive director of Kim's. So we're honored to be here. And Barbara, do you want to give a quick update as to what Kim's is, which is the national arm, and what's Kim's?
Yeah, Kim started out as all the birth organizations were all following evidence-based care. We all had our different twists on it, and we were all very competitive. We noticed that ACOG, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, had one powerful voice, and yet we were fragmented. So the idea was to bring all the organizations together, for us to leave our weapons at the door, and to work collaboratively to get a stronger voice for physiologic, mother-friendly, baby-friendly birth. And so that's what it is. And a document was created, the Mother-Friendly Childbirth Initiative, which still stands today. The research behind that has been updated in 2007 in the Journal of Perinatal Education, and again in 2014 in the book that I co-edited.
This one.
That one. And there were some addendums to the book because it was supposed to be according to the 10 steps, but then someone came forth and gave us a policy and procedure for use of nitrous oxide, for working with women who were giving birth, who were living in prisons at the time. And also for New York University donated the chapter on breastfeeding, the 10th step, and they donated their policies and procedures that they use to get baby-friendly status.
That's wonderful. So can these policies and procedures be easily adapted for other countries?
That's what it was for. It was just to start the discussion, to give something that other people could, tweak, because it can't meet every facility's needs.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Barbara. I am reading it. All right, let's get into step 3 here, and I'm going to quote it because it's so wonderfully phrased. And it states, inform the mother of the benefits of continuous support during labor and birth and affirm her right to receive such support from companions of her choice, such as fathers, partners, family members, doulas, and others. Continuous support has been shown to reduce the need for intrapartum analgesia, decrease the rate of operative births, and increase mother satisfaction with their birthing experience. We will be focusing on the benefits and continuous support of doulas here. And I also want to address the definition here that's in our document on doulas. And the definition states, doulas are birth companions trained in the provision of continuous support whose care is shown to increase satisfaction with birth experience and reduce women's use of analgesia, anesthesia interventions such as cesareans, forceps, and vacuum. So this definition, it's important to realize that in the beginning of the original doula studies, the results emphasize these reductions in interventions. However, that focus has really changed. So I want to share a quote with you from the Cochrane summaries that highlights this. And this is important. So it's crucial, the summary states, that the policy discussions focused on improving maternity care bear in mind the high cesarean rates are primarily a problem of obstetric culture and practice. The solution to this problem then needs to involve reforming obstetric practices from within and cannot rest wholly on the shoulders of doulas. Policymakers and administrators must look at systems reform and rigorous attention to evidence-based use of interventions that were originally developed to diagnose or treat problems and are now used routinely during normal labors. We knew that when we wrote the IMBCI, and I think that's important because those of us who train doulas have often worked with organizations that get a lot of funding to train doulas and especially help in resource-poor settings, etc. However, we can't perform magic. We will talk about the benefits of what we do. And so I'm going to focus now on linking step 3 to the rest of the IMBCI. And Alain Boncourt, I'm terrible at saying her name as well as she does. However, she did a wonderful job in the last webinar, or our first webinar, and addressing step 1 and highlighting it. And it states, treat every woman with respect and dignity. So doulas have become the role models for treating women with respect and dignity. So our step 1 has also been reinforced in the Respectful Maternity Care Charter. I'll address that in a minute. Also, step 4, there's a huge link with doulas and comfort measures and labor support. And Deborah will be doing a webinar on this one, she will be addressing the drug-free comfort measures for facilitating normal birth. So we'll look forward to that one. And there's several IMBCI principles that are linked to step 3. And then there's also some key IMBCI 10-step points in the document, the document is evidence-based. Doulas are evidence-based. The education that they provide and get is evidence-based. They are part of that continuum of care, and they are very mother-baby oriented. So now let's look at that respectful maternity care charter on the section on the distinctive importance of the childbearing period. It states that the notion of safe motherhood must be expanded beyond the prevention of morbidity or mortality to encompass respect for women's basic human rights, including respect for women's autonomy, dignity, feelings, choices, and preferences. And of course, including her choice of companionship. That the whole morbidity and mortality issue, of course, is hugely important. And for them to connect these pieces together, I thought was such a plus, because just how women need to be treated with respect and dignity. So let's look at what else the Respectful Maternity Care Charter addressed, and that's Article 2, and it states that every woman has the right to information, informed consent, and refusal, and respect for her choices and preferences, and again, reinforcing that companionship. So doulas guide women in understanding that right to informed consent and informed refusal. So they play a big role in all of this. Now let's look at a really wonderful principle that's part of, we have this wonderful page in the initiative on basic principles, and this one really relates to step 3. When culturally appropriate, the father's presence at birth can have positive effects on the family, his parenting, and his respect for mother. And Barbara is going to be addressing the father a little bit more in this. So we really can't forget the father, and we know that in many countries, well, I know in many countries fathers aren't allowed, but also in many countries, fathers were the first companions that were allowed in the birthing room. And so let me talk about this basic principle on establishing a caring atmosphere and listening to the mother, encouraging her self-expression, and respecting her privacy are essential aspects of optimal maternity care. This is a defining role of the doula. However, this should be standard among all caregivers. I'm sure you all agree. And as you know, there are there's a lot of evidence on the support for doulas. We have 21 randomized controlled trials with over 15,000 women. And the conclusion states, continuous support during labor has clinically meaningful benefits for women and infants. And I love this part. And no known harm. All women should have support throughout labor and birth. And here's a wonderful photo from India, from the Healthy Mother Birthing Center of wonderful labor support. So what does a doula do? She, of course, stays with that woman for that continuous support throughout labor, and she provides emotional, physical comfort, and a good objective point of view, and assists her in becoming informed. That's that informed consent piece, and then facilitates communication with everyone in the room. And she does nurture and protect her memory of the birth experience. So I'm going to have Barbara right here. Had to add this part, and so many people actually too, Deborah as well, really focus on the hormonal role. So Barbara, go ahead and give us your thoughts on this.
I think that as a doula and as the nursing students that I train, one of the biggest things I want them to remember is how powerful oxytocin and cortisol are. So for those of you listening, I'm sure that you can remember a time when you were in a strange, fear-producing environment or situation, something that you may have felt your breathing quickening and you were panting a little bit and you were having a little bit of gastric abdominal pain and maybe some overall weakness, like you felt like you couldn't move. Your heart might have been racing and pounding or both. That's the effect of fear from the hormones in your body that clearly don't favor relaxation or feeling safe. And actually, you need to be able to relax. You can't do that unless you feel safe. And those are two bottom line necessities for having an optimal, satisfying birth. if you've read Ina May Gaskin's books, she explains it much more than I'm going into today. But what happens is that the oxytocin is a natural hormone that comes from the pituitary, and the cortisol, I believe, also comes from the pituitary. They come down the same hose into the body. So if you're frightened, your body puts you into that fight or flee mode, and it gives you the cortisol to do that. So if you're trying to cross a busy street, we don't want you to be relaxed. We want you to be a little stressed and be on the lookout for cars and the light changing, that kind of stuff. And so cortisol is not an all bad thing. It jumps in when we need the energy to our muscles, when we need the energy to our brains, when we need the energy. It gives sugar. There's a surge of sugar. That's the food of the brain. It gives a surge of blood away from vital organs like the uterus to muscles that we would need to flee. So when the danger is over, or when you're feeling comfortable again, then the oxytocin comes in. The oxytocin, you know, is the hormone that squeezes the uterus and squeezes the breast. So it produces milk and it produces the baby. If you don't have enough oxytocin and you don't have enough blood flow to your uterus, then that uterus is going to shut down for a while. And then we're looking at babies with funky readings on the fetal monitor, which is used a lot here in the U.S. And we're instead of letting the mother get up, get calm, we tend to add medications and interventions and a cascade of interventions leading to probably unnecessary interventions and cesareans.
Oh, well, thank you. So here's a good demonstration of lots of wonderful hormones being released in these two women that are laboring here. These just happen to be photos that I have because the doula is me. In 1973, on the left, I'm supporting a mother at a hospital birth where she was had no companionship. And in 2001, it was a Kim's board of directors birth. Yes, you heard that right. We had a board of directors meeting at Jessica, the birthing mother there, home in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And she went in labor during our board meeting. And Barbara captured that photo. Thank you. Anyway, so the benefits of what a doula does, as reported in the doula studies, came from her continuous presence and attention to the woman's need for comfort, reassurance, confidence, and kind nurturing. That was a quote and summary by Penny Simpkins. So, and that, Deborah, those two women are demonstrating a really good example of relaxation. So I'm going to let you go ahead and go into your 21st century doulas. Looking forward to it.
Yes. Okay. So in the 60s, people gave us information about childbirth education and bringing the fathers into the birth and educating them along with the mothers. Since then, there's been some questions about who actually can be a doula. Well, if you look 3,000 years ago, there was no certification, there was no training. The women got together and served each other, and so that was their childbirth education, and that was their birth doula education. The fathers generally took care of the father, and the mothers took care of the mother. Family members and friends. Nurses. Ellen Hodnett has studied whether nurses can become doulas and provide the same strong benefits. Basically, her last study released in 2002, showed that even nurses in 13 facilities, 3 in Canada and 10 in the United States, who were trained to by a certified doula trainer, and they were assigned one-on-one with the mothers. They didn't get the same outcomes, and I think the reason for this is that that the nurses had other duties that they had to do that took them away from the continuous support. Thank you, Ray. So they had clinical tasks. The doulas had a supportive role and no real nursing functions. The midwives and the doctors, they had to consult with them. There are no clinical responsibilities or decisions that the doula has to make. They and intermittent presence by the nurses, even if they were assigned one-on-one with the women, they still had to turn around and read the monitor. They had to report to the medical people. They had to watch the IVs. They had to run out of the room to get the IV fluids. This does not make them less nurses. That's what they're there for. That's their function. And the doula has the privilege, and the nurses are often envious, of not having to do all this. The advocacy, both give information and advocacy, and they follow the code of ethics and standards of practice. The doulas do. They support breastfeeding just as the nurses do. And they have to do a lot of documentation. Anybody that's in the medical field needs no explanation for the tedious documenting that you have to do. The doulas, in a wonderful situation, meet the family ahead of time and then follow up with them with postpartum visits. And the nurses don't have that opportunity. They're there just for the birth. So you can see that nurses, doulas, the fathers who know the mother more than anybody else, but may not know the hospital routines, the doctor who may not even be that woman's, she may not even know her doctor. So those doctors, because they change rotations, she may never have met the one who's attending her birth. Midwives are more likely to know the mothers and fathers and any family members there. So you can see that a lot of different people. I want to go back to the fact that family and friends showed that that a 2-hour training of family members brought forth the same good results as trained certified doulas. 3,000 years ago, 300 years ago, still woman-to-woman support that showed easier, safer, and more satisfying birth. So when you're thinking about introducing doulas into your countries, yes, I support certification and training, and I think everyone feels more comfortable with that, but it is not necessary, and women should not go into birth alone.
Thank you. Yeah. So hearing an echo for some reason. Let's see. Now, Deborah, you're going to be addressing step 4 after we do step 2. Do you want to give us a little excitement to look forward to on your step 4 about drug-free comfort measures?
Sure, and I actually was just talking today. I'm going to be co-presenting this with Julie Bonapace. She is up in Canada, in Quebec. Some of you may know her, and she is currently in the process of finishing up the Canadian Pain Management Guidelines for the Society of Obstetricians and Gynecologists of Canada. She's also done a great review of non-pharmacological comfort measures. So the two of us are going to put together a presentation that will both kind of bring the latest research out, but also give you some tips and things that you can all bring back to your own practice, both in how to language offering women those choices, and hopefully some things maybe that you already know, reminding you to use them more, or maybe some things that you'll learn some new tricks.
And here's a collage of some comfort measures, and these are from some of our demonstration sites. And I'm thinking now, if those of you participating or hearing this at another time, you want to send us some comfort measure photos, we would love to have them. So Deborah, why don't you start and share what that rope is over the tub?
Yes. So that's our demo site in Feldbach, Austria. And I love that they have a tub room where women can go. And I think important that the tub is outside, like not against the wall. So there's access from all sides. And that rope is both to help women get in and out, but it does unravel, and women can either hold it to pull and push, or it'll open and go around their shoulders so they can dangle and hang. And the picture in the middle to the right is also from a room in Austria. I'd love to know, for all of you that are on the call, if you can write in the chat box how many of you have access to both water in your facility, or that is called a wheel. And I'd love to know if anybody's used the wheel. To me, it looks more like a swing. But when I talked with them in Austria several times and asked them, does it get used a lot? I love the answer that it only gets used a little, but it obviously takes up a fair amount of space. So I said, well, why do you keep it there? And they said, because it gives the message that this is all about giving women choices in whatever way they want to give birth. So I liked that reminder.
Love that.
And I'll let you keep going, Ray.
Yeah, is the ladder in Austria as well?
Oh, yes, that's right. That's also Austria as well. They're all Austria. You're not seeing a full room, but not only is there the ladder, they have a really big foam mat that can go in the middle of the room. The bed is off to the corner. It's not the focal point. There are 2 balls. There's aromatherapy. And one of the interesting things, Angelica, I wish she was here, our country representative, who's also a doula, could tell you, is they're actually taking one of their labor at birth rooms and making it a red tent. They're letting Angelica hang red material around to make the room feel even safer and private. But they have a whole host of options there for comfort and for movement, including acupuncture and aromatherapy.
I love that. And there's other photos here of actual touch, comfort measures, and massage. Since we're talking about some of our demonstration sites, I wanted to share with you about the doula community program in Belo Horizonte in Brazil. Through their national humanization policy, they have this community doula project at Sophia Feldman Hospital. And what's interesting about this, it was recognized as a strategy for humanization of labor and birth. I mean, it's wonderful, not interesting, it's fantastic. Well, the municipal health department in 2006 adopted the project of community doulas as a public health policy. And the same department in 2008 considered the role of the doula in the community as one of the 15 indicators of quality of care. That's pretty important. And these community doulas are women from the community, usually surrounding the hospital. And they've been chosen because they have this wonderful empathic relationship with the mothers and their companions. And you can see their commitment there with the women. They do work voluntarily, and they receive financial aid to reimburse them for some of their expenses. What's interesting is this is all part of a law in Brazil. So Barbara?
Has it brought down the high cesarean rate and high interventionist rate there?
Deborah, you've been to Belo Horizonte. Do you want to share anything on that?
Yes. Barbara, they have been keeping documentation, and they do more than 10,000 births a year. And because the care there is so respectful and everyone has continuous support, plus the right to a doula for free, many people are coming from surrounding areas, very high tertiary care population, and their cesarean rate has been staying around 26, I think 27%, which is significantly lower for those of you that know some of the rates in the hospitals in Brazil. So they do credit the doula program as one of the reasons that's down. But as Ray, that slide was wonderful about citing that it takes a collaboration of effort and good evidence-based care. So they do recognize the doula is a significant piece of it, but so is all their care.
And in a hospital, as I've learned with my clinical rotations with the students, a doula is a great help, makes a fabulous difference. But if you've got the medical staff, the nursing staff, and the midwives and doctors on board, probably in the United States more likely to be found in a baby-friendly hospital, then you've got a change of culture from medicalized birth to woman-centered birth, just as in this Brazilian area. I'm just so happy to hear about that.
Yeah, great point.
So Barbara's asking this question: are you interested in supporting women in labor?
Am I interested in supporting women in labor? Yes. I train nursing students. We call them, because they go to Duke, as doulas. And many of them will not go on to get certification. Not all of them are even interested in a birth-related practice once they graduate, but they're all interested in learning about what can help people heal with the release of more oxytocin and eliminate postpartum stress and trauma, and also post-hospital trauma, what can ease pain to collaborate with with medications. And so these nurses, I'm so excited, will go out and in their own practices, they will use these basic pieces of information. As for labor support, they form teams and they support women at a local birthing center and in a refugee place. Church World Services has takes care of refugees, and if they're pregnant, they ask for doulas. So, and I love birth. It's a real high for me. I love seeing the power of women. I love seeing how much this continuous emotional and support makes their lives easier. I really feel like I've done something.
Well, you have, and I'm really impressed by the program that you have with the nurses. And I did sit in on your webinar where you had the nurses with you, and how the nurses that took the doula training felt so much more prepared and confident with working with the laboring women as compared to the doulas that didn't take the training. So that was really, really powerful. Thank you. I'm glad you did that. All right. So our next webinar, we're winding down. We promised 20 minutes. We're a little past that. Is going to be on step 2. Is Sue here by any chance? No. Okay. And one of our board of directors, Professor Sue Down, who is a midwife as well, well known as a matter of fact, will be presenting on step 2 on midwifery knowledge and skills and how it enhances and optimizes normal birth. So that will be the next one, and you'll all hear about it when we send out the reminder. Also, I want to invite you to go to the YouTube channel and the best way to get to it is to go to www.imbci.org. And you can see we have 3 videos up right now. And I want to add to the thing about prenatal education and who Deborah is speaking with on step 4. She did a wonderful webinar on, I call it a new look at prenatal education. And they really focus on the hormone aspect. And so they've really given it a whole new look, and it's really impressive. So it's going to be wonderful to have her do that step 4 with Deborah. I'm really looking forward to it. So your work is greatly appreciated. We thank you for your participation, and I am now going to turn this over to Deborah and Barbara, who's going to be answering those questions.
Thank you so much, Ray and Barbara. Fantastic look at our step 3 and around the world and how we integrate all the steps together. And I'd love to hear now from everyone that's on with us. I've muted your microphones, but you either can be typing in the box to offer your comments back to Ray and Barbara, or feel free to unmute yourself. Or if you don't know how to unmute yourself, let me know. Just write in the chat that you'd like to be unmuted, and I can clearly do that for you as well. So I'd love to hear some of you, are there any questions out there, or anybody that would like to share what they're doing in your own communities? Because we have so many of you from around the world with us. It would be wonderful to hear how you're personally using step 3.
May I answer Nora's question?
Please.
She says, can you send the link to the Duke Nurses Training program? Nurses in India can benefit from this training. Okay, so there's not really a link. We have a Doulas Facebook page, but that's to keep everybody up to date on forthcoming trainings. What I can do is talk with you independently about what I do and how it all started. And there's also an article coming out in the Fall Journal of Perinatal Education, written by a student with me as co-author, about the Doula program and about the Johns Hopkins University program that's been going on for many, many more years. And if you want to write me at barbara@hotelling.net, and I'll type it in, I will be glad to send you copies of that paper once it is once it's been printed. But I can also share with you information and work with you with your resources and your desires to do the same thing. Yes, I feel all nurses will benefit from this kind of training in any area where there is pain and suffering and healing needs to be done.
Great.
So anyone else? I know Bodil, I'm not sure if your microphone's available. Bodil is a doula in Sweden, and so I know is doing great work there. I don't know if you're able to either type in or open up your mic.
Yeah, I think, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, it's fine. Yeah. I'm very interested in these things with community doulas, and I've been working with a project in Sweden that is funded by, so officially funded. So there, the doulas do not work for free; they get paid, and they are women who speak languages that they are helping women who do not speak Swedish, who has not been in Sweden so long, like Somali language, Arabic language, and other. And so the doulas are helping with the language and helping as a doula during the birth. And now we are going to start, it's very new now, we're going to start a new project where we also can help after the birth, like postpartum doulas with this cultural competence.
Thank you, Bodil. It's wonderful to hear the work that you're doing.
Yes. And I see Kathy, another one of our board members, just joined us.
Hi.
Fantastic. Hello, Kathy.
Hello, hi.
And we have a comment. Maria, you're listed as admin, but I've realized that you're Maria from Greece, and I don't know if you want to open your mic to kind of speak right now, if you have that availability. Why we're doing that, I see your comments here that you've been working hard for at least 20 years to get women's rights during birth respected in Greece, and there have been some changes, but it's still so difficult. Doulas are not officially allowed in hospitals, and midwives are officially hostile. And I love, Celine, your writing, to be courageous. Is there anything that anyone would like to share, Barbara or Ray, to support Maria or Nora? I see you say this sounds like India too.
Yeah. Well, Maria, you're a doula trainer, so you're over there doing trainings, right? Is her mic working?
No, she doesn't have a microphone.
Yeah.
But yes,
Well,
she.
Deborah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Deborah, you have done so many trainings all over the world, doula trainings. And I know that, I mean, we both know, and Barbara too has done some internationally as well, that each country takes on the training and the education of doulas in a little bit differently. They make it their project. So have you seen an overall theme of this community doulas and through the trainings that you've done internationally?
I would say, like you're saying, there's real variation in the countries in that, but I think that when doulas begin in general, there's often a resistance that I often feel comes out of a lack of understanding on what the role is, and sometimes fear. And I also think in the countries where midwives themselves are often struggling for their own recognition and their own autonomy, they get even more worried that this is somebody else that's going to dilute or somehow step on their role or their power. And my experience, and I think this was true in the US, and I'd love to hear others share their experience there, but I think what I felt is when there's clarity on the doula's role and it's seen as a missing part of the team that doesn't overlap with anyone but complements everyone and facilitates good communication between all, and that we all have an interest, the safest, healthiest, and most satisfying birth for mother-baby, that then the acceptance grows, and that usually grows by midwives that have had good doula experiences or have been doulas, which is another wonderful thing, because doula training, I think, is often a pathway to midwives. Many doulas go on to become midwives, and then the information and knowledge gets out there. But this resistance, to me, is kind of the beginning of doulas in almost every country. But I think in Greece, it's sad to hear it's been 20 years, because I think in other countries, it's been a little bit a shorter timeline, and I'm not sure why there in particular it's still so challenging. But Barbara, you also do a lot international. What are some of your thoughts too?
When I went to Iceland to train doulas and train them in the hug, which is information about the newborn that people can share with their new parents, the story was wonderful. Sophia Bergen's daughter was the woman who contacted me and brought me there. And the reason that she started bringing trainings there was the fact that she was the only trained doula. And she didn't want to be isolated. She didn't want to be an oddity. She wanted more women supported. And so she formed a network and she brought trainers in. And now there are more trained and certified doulas in her area, and she keeps training.
And you know what's important is that when you get into, this is Ray, you get into an area where, let's take, for example, I did many trainings in Puerto Rico for years, and the doulas were resisted there by the hospitals. And there was one doula, however, that was accepted, and she was a certified doula. And I said, you have just got to give them the standards of practice and code of ethics so they know and understand what we do. So once we got in and did a training at a hospital, invited the nurses to attend, it changed everything. And because then they understood, and then they got to learn some comfort measures and how to provide emotional support and how to be there just for the mom. And it made a world of difference. And now Puerto Rico and doulas is just a completely different world. It's impressive. So I was happy to see that change, but it was important that we explained completely the difference, the different roles. And even there are even midwives that need to understand that there's a different role with the doula than the midwife. So it's clear in our standards of practice and code of ethics.
I'd like to respond to Nora's comment. She says that now that they have an inside India training by Kappa, that it's more well respected, and now they're better off. But she says the only problem now is many trainee doulas don't have other doulas to mentor them or bring them to births while they are students or in training. So not many options for practical experience. So here's what we did at UNC Hospital, Women's Hospital here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. We have a volunteer doula program there. And we have some mentors, but it's very hard to mentor all the new doulas who have signed up, and they're eagerly awaiting to get that experience. So we decided that since 3,000 years ago, women were helping women and they didn't have training and certification, that it would be all right to send 2 trainee doulas in and let them, bounce off each other. That has worked very well if and you can also offer them for free. I don't know whether your doulas charge, but offering them for free often gets them into the door. And once they've got a little bit of experience, they can see that they're on the right track.
In reality, Barbara, like you said, 3,000 years ago, women were supporting women without the education. And back in the early 1970s, when I was providing doula support, I wasn't I was a trained childbirth educator, but I was not a trained doula, and all these comfort measures that we have today weren't even talked about. And so you saw the one woman laying down there on her side, and that's what we did mostly. So all in all, however, if we think about the doula as that one nurturing person with her, just comforting her, just holding her, just telling her she's doing a good job, that doesn't take training or mentoring. So I think we have doulas in the making just walking in the door because they have the heart to do this kind of work, and they care for the women. So anyway, just my thoughts on that.
Celine asked, what do you think about the professionalization of doulas starting to be part of the obstetric culture? Some doulas, like midwives, do become medicalized, and that's not what we're there for. So what I think is that we are a profession, but if we ever become licensed, then we're going to have a whole new set of problems. So I like the fact that we're not licensed in the United States. I like the fact that Penny Simpkins says that, just go with women to birth. Yes, get certification and training if you can, but don't let women go alone to birth. And also, to Maria, who says in Greece, trainee doulas do their practice on a volunteer basis. They still have a very hard time to find births to practice. So I was teaching childbirth education for a hospital, and we were charging parents $35. I went out on my own with another teacher, and we were charging $95. We had scholarships. All you had to do was ask, and you could get it for free. It wasn't that big a deal. But we wanted people to know that this was something special, that this was not your usual hospital prepare for this hospital experience class, that this was much more. And so it wasn't about the money at all. It's just about setting ourselves apart. And so you may have to ask something, and it may become a little more prestigious if you do require some. I've traded for my, one family repaired my back deck. I've traded for ice cream. I've done a lot of different work where I've bartered. So all of that can be respectful of the mother's abilities to pay, and yet make it something that they feel that they, really worked hard for.
The role of the doula is so much different than many other roles in the maternity care scene. And I do trainings in an area that I'm at, and we have a midwifery school that requires for anybody to even apply to go to midwifery school that they must attend a doula training. And the whole purpose of that is so that these women that are going to serve women clinically have the opportunity to see and work with them from a different perspective, just seeing the woman and just listening to the woman, and respecting her requests, and just fully understanding her without thinking clinically. So that's why the roles are different. I so appreciate that your nurses get to see that difference, Barbara, because it really is different. And it's real important that the midwives see that as well, because once they get into midwifery school, they're only focused on the clinical part. Even though midwives are women with women, they still have a big clinical role to play there.
And we're able to tell the nursing students, you won't be able to do this when you're working. So how are you going to make this available and accessible to the mothers that you work with? Can you enlist the support of the family members in the room? Sometimes they're just frightened and they don't know what to do and what not to do, and you can guide them because you know all these strategies, and they can do the work of the doulas. Hakan, I'm sorry if I've messed up your name, but he says that there is some, I don't know, flashback or whatever. There's the medicalized people think that the doulas try to tell the doctors what to do and the nurses what to do. This is one of the great aspects of training doulas and training nurses at the same time, is that when they both understand each other's role, and then they're less likely to be feeling that way. They're more likely to be collaborating. Like the nurse asked me on my last birth, like, well, what do you think's going on? What do you think, we can do? And I said, I think that we're trying everything, and I think that this woman has past baggage that she's dealing with that neither one of us can foresee. I said she's had shared decision making. She has had access to all the strategies, and yet she is still not able to progress. And I said, I just think that the fact that you have been so kind to her and let her do all these things that we don't always see in a hospital, that however she has her baby, she's going to feel great about the experience.
I had a doula tell me one time, a mom tell me one time that her doula was that little angel on her shoulder. And I thought, oh, that's the sweetest thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How are the questions?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, okay. I just wanted to make sure. I'm not able to type in comments for some reason. I'm not sure why. My name is Esther. I'm a mom of 4. I recently just had my 4th, and right after or during the time that I was pregnant with my 3rd in Alabama, I was finding that, this whole idea of, having a baby naturally, with midwifery care is something that's illegal, aside from having like an OB present. And that was when I decided I wanted to become a doula. And since becoming a doula, I'm finding, of course, more than ever that moms need support. And so on my own, I've gone ahead and I've made sure that, childbirth education is very important and happens throughout our prenatal visits. But I totally agree 100% when you're saying that other people in the support system and the labor support team play with fathers. This place, if they haven't experienced it on their own already, but that's the first place where they can disappear, is in the birth room, in the delivery room. And so I try to make sure that with the fathers, if they can make it to at least one session, because sometimes they just don't come, that session becomes one where I empower them as a dad, and I teach them the tools, the things that I would normally be doing with their client, with the mother. And I found that to be very, very helpful. I even had a client who she couldn't get me as a doula because I actually was about to deliver my baby myself. But I ended up doing some childbirth. She was a VBAC mom, and she ended up getting her VBAC. Her husband did everything, as I suggested, and I did like a crash crash course with them. So I believe in the model. I believe in what you guys are doing. And I'm actually part of a committee here in Miami that meets up regularly with other agencies and organizations in the community that, you know, deal with mothers and babies. And one of the things we're trying to do is try to have more baby, you know, mother baby friendly kind of hospitals here, because they're few and far in between. I think we only have one down here in Miami. And so I believe in what you're doing. It's really cool to hear the feedback from different parts of the country and the world. So I'm just very glad to be on this call. And you guys are just talking about my life right now. And I really love that I got to be on this call today.
Esther, is it Esther that we're talking to?
Yes.
Yeah, Esther, I will tell you that what you are doing is beautiful, and what you're doing is what we have all been doing, and we love hearing that you are making that available to people. I would also like to say one thing about fathers who spend at least 15 minutes with their newborns in the first few hours after birth, and study were at 3 months more attentive and caring and understanding of the infant's behaviors. And also there was a study about how the mothers felt about the father's presence at the birth. And I could give you the statistics if I ripped through some papers, but significantly more mothers felt that the fathers were a must-have at the birth than the women who did not have fathers and doulas working at the birth. They felt that, you know, the role was so much better. It didn't affect their marriages much in another study, but it still shows that when we go in as doulas, whatever we can do to get those family members involved, they're the ones who will be there for the life of the children. And so we need to really involve them. So thank you for all you're doing.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So I get the role of saying we're just about out of time, and we thank Ray and Barbara so much for taking the time to put this together, for leading us through our Step 3 continuous companionship. Doulas, partners, family members. And I really appreciate all of you that have joined from all over the world. And I have to say, Hakan, you take the award for joining from a boat. So that makes me so just happy, you know, to know you're out there floating and enjoying. And we look forward. Our next webinar will be in August. As Ray said, it's going to be Step 2. We're actually going backwards because we're doing the steps in a different order because of everyone's holiday. But Professor Sue Down will be presenting our Step 2 then, and we will send everyone out a reminder for that with the link to this call. So you'll get a quick overview. You'll get the link on YouTube and our website to this video. And then we hope that you'll join us in August. We'll also put out all the other dates for the next steps. We're doing one a month. But I do want to also remind you that we would love your pictures, as Ray said. So this is not the end of the discussion. We hope that you'll join our Facebook group, the IMBCI on Facebook, and that you'll post pictures of doulas and fathers and partners and the kind of social support that's happening in your communities, and continue to bring your questions, thoughts, comments, both the joys and the struggles, as we work to provide respectful care with love and dignity to every mother, baby, father, partner, family around the world. So, and Maria's saying, you know, you're getting some midwives to become MB Nets, and that's a great reminder too, because many of you that are on the call are already part of our MotherBaby networks, but we invite you, those that aren't, to become one and to help us spread and invite more people to use the 10 steps and become part of our network. So Barbara and Ray, anything in closing you want to add?
Well, definitely please share with anybody that needs the information, our YouTube channel, so they can watch all the steps, or the steps as we progress through them, plus the other videos that we have up, which are excellent. So please pass the word along. And thank you so much for participating.
I agree. Thank you for joining us. You know what? There's nothing finer except for birth. To be connected, to be connected with like-hearted and like-minded people. So this has been a joy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Hakan. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, everyone. So I'll leave the chat box up for just a moment, but we're ending our recording now. And thank you to all that are listening in later. We hope to hear from you too.